Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. C'est un plaisir pour moi de me joindre à vous aujourd'hui dans la magnifique ville de Victoria. I'm thrilled to be here today alongside my friend and colleague, Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. I'd like to extend special thanks to the Honourable Josie Osborne, Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, as well as the Honourable George Heyman, Minister of Environment, Climate Change Strategy for British Columbia, for joining us today. Let me begin by acknowledging that the city of Victoria is on the homeland of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt nations. There are a couple of dominant issues that are keeping Canadians awake at night. One is the cost of living, whether that means finding and affording a place to live or putting food on the table. Another one is climate change and the costly real-time impacts we are starting to see too frequently in our lives: wildfires, floods, extreme heat. My heart goes out to the people of Fort Nelson and other Canadians who are currently being evacuated because of forest fires. Energy affordability is one place where these two big issues meet and where we can start to find solutions. That is why we're here today. I'm excited to announce that the Government of Canada is investing up to $103 million from the Canada Low Carbon Economy Fund and the Oil to Heat Pump Affordability Program to reduce energy costs and support climate action right here in British Columbia. The funding will be used to provide grants so residents can get off expensive oil and gas price roller coaster and switch to high-efficiency electric heat pumps. It will also help fund home upgrades, such as energy-efficient windows and doors. We're talking here about saving energy, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and cutting costs for British Columbian homeowners and tenants. Installing a heat pump can provide heat for your home in the winter and cool air in the summer. Once you make the switch to get off oil and gas, you can save hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars a year on home energy bills. Je suis ravi d'annoncer que le gouvernement du Canada investira jusqu'à 103 millions de dollars dans le cadre du Fonds pour une économie à faible émission de carbone et du programme pour la conversion abordable du mazout à la thermopompe des ressources naturelles du Canada. Ces fonds permettront aux propriétaires et aux locataires de la Colombie-Britannique d'économiser de l'argent et de l'énergie, tout en réduisant la pollution des gaz à effet de serre. À titre d'exemple complet, ces fonds vont servir à remplacer les combustibles de chauffage domestique par des solutions d'économie d'énergie telles que les thermopompes, ou à des projets de rénovation comme le remplacement de vos portes et fenêtres par des alternatives éco-énergétiques. We hear so much about cost-cutting and affordability these days from people who offer no real solutions. The deficit that keeps me awake at night is the environmental deficit we are leaving to our kids and grandkids. Fairness for every generation demands that we look for solutions that affordability and cut carbon pollution driving climate change, both for this generation and ones that will follow us, while helping people adapt right now to the new climate reality and save money on home heating and cooling at the same time. Merci, thank you. Now I would like to hand it over to Josie Osborne, Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation of British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's wonderful to be here with everybody on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples. And in addition to this fabulous lineup of speakers, I just want to acknowledge we're joined as well by MLA Aman Singh, the Parliamentary Secretary for Environment, and MP Laurel Collins from here in Victoria. Thanks for joining us. It is really fantastic to be here to celebrate such a terrific announcement. And it goes without saying that British Columbians are leading the shift to clean energy. They have seen firsthand the impacts of climate change on our economy, on their communities, from historic flooding, incredibly intense wildfires and drought, and certainly our hearts go out to the people in the Fort Nelson area as well as we undertake what looks to be another very challenging summer ahead of us. People are ready to do their part to fight climate change, to build stronger, more resilient communities. And these are communities that are powered by BC's clean, affordable, and reliable electricity. Not everyone can afford the higher upfront costs that are involved in switching from, say, a heating oil system or natural gas or propane to an electric heat pump. But everybody deserves a more comfortable, energy efficient, and affordable place to live. In addition to heating in the winter, heat pumps also provide cooling in the summer, and that helps to protect people from extreme heat while replacing the need for a separate air conditioner. And the energy savings of heat pumps are very real, up to 80%. That's why our government is proud to be partnering with Canada to make electric heat pumps and energy efficiency upgrades more affordable for low and middle income households. Today, we're announcing the Clean BC Better Homes Energy Savings Program that will provide increased rebates for households that are switching from fossil fuels to electric heat pumps. With $103 million in new federal funding and $151 million in new provincial funding, we're making major enhancements to the previous Clean BC Income Qualified program. First, we're expanding eligibility to include middle-income households. Second, we're increasing the maximum rebate amount for a new heat pump from $9,500 to $16,000. This is an increase of approximately 70% from the previous program. Rebate amounts will vary based on the household income and the type of heat pump that's being installed. Third, we're adding a top-up of up to $3,000 for people living in northern BC to recognize the higher costs that are faced by colder, more remote regions of the province. And fourth, we're increasing the rebate for electrical service upgrades that might be needed to install a heat pump up to $5,000. I want to emphasize to everybody just how meaningful these supports are. Say you're a family, you're living in a 100-mile house, and you've been waiting to get off of dirty and expensive heating oil, and you want to replace it with a central heat pump in your home. If you qualify for the low-income supports, you could receive a total of $24,000. In many cases, it'll be enough to cover the entire cost of an installation, and that qualifying British Columbians essentially get a free heat pump through this program. Let's say you're a middle-income homeowner or you're a renter living here in Victoria and you want to replace an aging natural gas furnace with a new, highly efficient heat pump. You could be eligible for up to $12,000 in rebates to support your upgrade, and then you also get the health benefits of a new cooling system in your home. One of the best parts of the program is that British Columbians don't have to pay upfront and then wait for weeks or even months to get a rebate check in the mail. Instead, participants pre-register for the program to verify their income and their home eligibility, and then once that work is done, the contractor submits the final paperwork and then deducts the rebate amount from the cost of the upgrades. You only have to pay for the remainder that's left. Every year, we're seeing more and more homes make the switch. The number of households in BC with a heat pump has increased by 80% since 2017 and the launch of our government's Clean BC plan. In fact, 2022 was the first year ever where more heat pumps were installed than new natural gas furnaces. But we can do more. Through the new Clean BC Better Homes Energy Savings Program, we will help more and more British Columbians switch to clean electricity while making their homes more energy efficient. Thank you so much, and I will now pass the mic over to Minister Wilkinson.
Thank you, Josie. Merci, tout le monde. Welcome, everyone. We talk a lot about climate change these days for obvious reasons. Climate change is altering our world's natural environment in a myriad of harmful ways. Last summer, Canadians experienced the most destructive forest fire season in this country's history. Last week, my officials presented the latest wildfire outlook for the coming months. It shows that as early as this month, fire activity is expected to be above normal, particularly in eastern BC. In June, areas at severe risk will expand to cover most of BC, including Vancouver Island. Right now, there are nearly 120 wildfires burning across Canada, with 50 wildfires burning in this province and others burning in Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories. Wildland fire activity has unfortunately worsened over the weekend in many of these jurisdictions, and there have been a number of evacuations, including in Fort Nelson. In BC, nearly 4,000 evacuees have been provided shelter in Fort St. John and Prince George. And with the weather forecast for this week indicating warmer and drier conditions across most of Canada, wildfire risks are exacerbated in already affected areas, necessitating close situational awareness and vigilant monitoring of weather patterns and regional reports. To those who are being impacted, to those who have loved ones who are being impacted, and to all Canadians, I certainly want you to know on behalf of the federal government that we will be here to support you during these very challenging times. We have been working around the clock to prepare for the worst. We have, at the federal level, been investing in wildfire training and life-saving wildfire equipment. We have been strengthening our international partnerships, and certainly have done so particularly with our friends in the United States, so that we can draw upon international wildfire fighting resources if and when required. We have been working with Indigenous communities so that Indigenous traditional knowledge can be at the forefront of our wildfire response efforts, and of course, we are planning for the future by advancing a comprehensive plan to both mitigate and to adapt to climate change. Canada needs to be an active player in a world where countries are increasingly, urgently racing to slash carbon emissions. It is why this federal government is investing in clean energy and technologies that grow the economy, that create jobs, and place us squarely at the forefront of the fight against climate change. 2 weeks ago, we released this year's National Inventory Report. It showed that we are indeed making progress. Emissions are significantly below the 2005 baseline. They are lower than they were before the pandemic and are clearly on a long-term decline. However, the report certainly shows that there remains work to do. Consider the building sector. Going forward, we will have to retrofit over 16 million buildings to reach our goal of net zero emissions by 2050. These buildings will not only need to be green, they will need to be affordable to build and affordable to live in. C'est pourquoi je suis très heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui pour parler de mesures efficaces visant à rendre les rénovations domiciliaires plus accessibles aux habitants de la Colombie-Britannique. Already, the existing green building programs at the federal level are enabling Canadians to make improvements in their homes and save hundreds, even thousands of dollars per year. The Greener Homes Grant helped 210,000 Canadians, including 25,000 here in BC, to retrofit their homes. The Greener Homes Loan Program offers interest-free loans up to $40,000, repayable over 10 years for a variety of home retrofits. And the Oil to Heat Pump Affordability Program has already issued over $46 million in grants across the country to households looking to replace their expensive oil furnaces with heat pumps, representing average savings of over $1,300 a year in home energy bills. We are also building on the success of these programs through Budget 2024, which includes $800 million to support the next phase of the Greener Homes Grant Program. This will provide more generous financial support to low and medium income Canadians for a whole range of retrofits, no matter how you heat your home. Today's announcement marks an important step towards greener, more affordable home retrofits. Of the funding noted by Minister Guilbeault, $42.4 million comes from Natural Resources Canada's Oil to Heat Pump Affordability Program, which will be co-delivered through the Clean BC Income Qualified Program. This announcement means an increase in support of over 75% from the existing rebate program that is currently available. By working closely and collaboratively with the Government of British Columbia to create common tools to incent efficiency retrofits, we are supporting climate action across the province and helping thousands more British Columbians save money on their heating and on their cooling bills. Au-delà de ces annonces, dans les semaines à venir, les Canadiens entendront parler d'une stratégie sur les bâtiments écologiques qui renforcera les travaux en cours. We know that we must not only support the choice to make green home retrofits, we need to make that choice affordable for the Canadians who need it the most. In this, I am very pleased to say that we have a very, very collaborative partner here with the provincial government in British Columbia. This federal government has developed one of the most comprehensive climate plans in the world, a plan that takes into account the scientific imperative to reach net zero by 2050, while also focusing on doing this in a manner that is affordable and that will create economic prosperity for future generations of Canadians. I would say it is unfortunate that not all federal leaders share these views. Mr. Poilievre does not either believe in climate change or does not think it is a very important thing. After last year's devastating fires, I think Canadians were perhaps assuming that he would reflect on his position. Mr. Poilievre's plan for our environment is unfortunately to axe the facts and the science and to simply let this planet burn. Canadians deserve and expect thoughtful action founded on the acceptance of the scientific reality of climate change. That is exactly what this government has done and will do tomorrow and the next day and the next. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And now I would like to invite up Minister Heyman.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, and thank you, everyone. It's great to join everyone here on the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples. It is, as always, a pleasure to stand here, not just with provincial partners like Minister Osborne, but federal partners like Minister Guilbeault and Minister Wilkinson, as well as people working in the field like Jordan, who we'll hear from shortly. These federal-provincial partnerships really provide the needed investments to address climate change. We're used to talking about British Columbians experiencing the impacts of extreme weather, and it seems like every spring we talk about the devastating impacts of wildfires a little bit earlier. We're seeing the tragedies in Fort Nelson. We saw the predictions of a drought that is coming earlier in the spring. That's why we introduced a climate plan in British Columbia called Clean BC and our roadmap to 2030. That's why we have a plan to have a whole range of measures to reduce emissions across the entire spectrum of our economy and our communities. And it's working. Since 2018, the year we introduced Clean BC, our emissions went down by 5% to 2021. That's important, but we have a long way to go, and we know that by allowing the roots of programs like the Better Homes, Better Building program, like the Clean Transportation Action Plan, like the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate to take root, they will start to be more and more effective. We know that many British Columbians are facing affordability challenges, and home heating and cooling is one of them. But the answer to facing a big problem and a lot of work to fix the problem is to get started, not to kick the can down the road. Our goal for 2030 is to reduce building and community emissions by about 60%. That's a really ambitious target, and a significant amount of that is going to come from buildings. So switching to clean heating sources, adding insulation, installing better windows and doors, all will both lower emissions and future costs. That's the good news. When we ask British Columbians to make changes in their lifestyle to reduce emissions, we want British Columbians to understand that it will be more affordable for them on an ongoing basis. They will, in fact, save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. It will make their homes more comfortable. It will enable them to withstand heat domes as well as cold winters. But we can't ask people to shoulder this burden on their own, and that's why we have programs in partnership with the federal government to make it affordable for people to make the switch. The higher rebates will allow more low and middle income British Columbians to improve energy efficiency in their homes. It will help them deal with the upfront costs. It will help reduce the barriers to change. I know British Columbians would welcome the opportunity to reduce their energy bills, to help address climate change, and to have more comfortable homes. And that's, in essence, what this program is about. In partnership with Canada, our government is helping people to be part of the solution and to benefit from those solutions very, very directly. It's an honor to be here with colleagues today. I know that if we continue to work together, we will make it easier and more affordable for people to transition away from fossil fuels and to continue to make progress on our ambitious goal, but our achievable goal of lowering BC's greenhouse gas emissions 40% by 2030. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Jordan Owen, the owner of RedBlue Heating and Refrigeration, to the podium.
Hello everybody, I'm Jordan from RedBlue Heating and Refrigeration. We've been in business locally here for 11 years and employ 76 employees within the Greater Victoria area. The rebates have helped us grow our company to what it is today, And I feel the rebates are important as we have an abundance of clean energy here in BC that needs to be consumed. The average homeowner in BC cannot afford to install a cold climate heat pump, and these rebates allow for clean energy use and comfort required in our changing climate. Consumers should support local reputable companies as well as reputable brands to ensure that we keep this positive trend going. Thank you.
Thank you. Reminder for media on the phones, please take yourself off speakerphone or Bluetooth so we can hear you clearly. You may then press star 1 to enter the queue for a question and follow-up. We'll start in person with Richard Zussman, Global News.
Either for Minister Guilbeault or Minister Osborne, what does this do for British Columbians who are already in the system, that have already gone about ordering their heat pump and are working their way through the previous program? And will this mean they can access additional funding as they wait for installation?
Thanks so much, Richard. Yeah, it's exciting to see how many people have already taken advantage of the program out there. This program, which will begin in mid-June, people will be able to find all of the requirements that they need to fulfill clearly laid out on a website and be able to move forward with that. For folks who have completed the process, they'll continue with the heat pump installation, and then we'll welcome those inquiries from people and to program staff to help them move into the new system. Thank you.
Yeah, this is for Minister Guilbeault. Premier Danielle Smith in Alberta has sent out a statement today about the Impact Assessment Act, claiming that they believe it's still unconstitutional and they are ready to challenge you in court around it. Are you concerned at all about the opposition from Premier Smith? And what amendments, if any, would you do to try to prevent another court battle with the government of Alberta?
In fact, the amendments that we have put forward in the Budget Implementation Act are specifically to respond to the Supreme Court decision on this act, which stated that some of the act was constitutional, but some elements weren't. So we're doing exactly what the Supreme Court has asked us, which is to provide clarity and course correct in the implementation of the Impact Assessment Act. Obviously, it seems that Premier Smith will oppose us on all things environment and all things climate change, whether it's to provide clean electricity and cheaper electricity to the people of Alberta, whether to make sure that every sector of the economy, including the oil and gas sector, does its fair share when it comes to fighting climate change and fighting climate change pollution, whether it's on ensuring that Canadians have more access to electric vehicles, which are much cheaper to operate and to use than internal combustion engine. It's obviously her choice, but unfortunately, that doesn't change the reality of climate change and climate impacts in Canada and our determination to act to protect the health and well-beings of Canadians.
Just add one thing to that. I agree with everything my colleague said, but I would say that I find it disappointing that Premier Smith essentially sees that it's productive to simply communicate through the media. I had a direct face-to-face conversation with Premier Smith very recently. She never raised this issue. There certainly are opportunities to engage and to have conversations in a constructive way that are not simply by issuing press releases. I would point you to Premier Eby and his government, where we often don't necessarily agree on everything, and we have good conversations about how to actually get past that. And I would invite Premier Smith perhaps to be a little more constructive in terms of how she engages.
Next question, Catherine Marlowe, CBC.
Yeah, my question's for Jordan. It sounds like this is pretty easy for the consumers. And maybe a lot of the paperwork lands on businesses like yours. Is it manageable to have to sort of manage a lot of the rebate side on the back end?
Yeah, as far as like our office staff, they're all very well versed in the rebate programs. So we generally help customers out with any of the rebate questions they have. There are actually other companies nowadays involved that will handle the whole process. That is not a RedBlue employee. They're a separate company, and they've been started up to help engage with this process.
For your services?
We have a 2-week wait list right now residentially, which is not too bad. Take it back when the program was first released, that would be about a 4-month wait list. So it's gotten better with time, adapting and hiring more people and adapting to the programs they have. So yeah.
Thank you.
Problem.
Next question,
Add quickly that if people have questions about what's the best program or the best fit for them and their households, that the province has energy advisors who can help with that program. So we encourage people to reach out and ask for that and help navigate the process. We know just how important it is to have a strong network of contractors out there like Jordan and others. And so we're working to build that network throughout the province because it's important for people to be able to find those qualified contractors to come and do the installations no matter where you live in the province.
Next question, Yvonne Raymond, CTV News.
Hi, I believe both of my questions will be for Minister Osborne. What can you tell us in terms of how the rebates will affect people who live in stratas, and especially stratas that are perhaps older and have bylaws that say that you can't install a heat pump outside your window?
Thanks for that. Yeah, it's really important that people who are living in multi-unit residential buildings, apartment buildings, or strata buildings are able to make the changes that they need to see. So we offer a separate program for those whole building programs, the Better Buildings program, and we recommend that folks in strata councils reach out to that program and understand what is available for them in terms of their building envelope, in terms of upgrading their heating system and doing other energy retrofits.
And my follow-up question has to do with the perception that heat pumps don't necessarily work for all Canadians in extreme weather conditions especially. So is anything being done by either of the governments to improve the technology there for those extreme weathers?
Well, I think that's a really important myth to bust. Heat pumps work in cold climates. There are people who are living in northern BC, who are living in the Yukon Territory, who have heat pumps that work well. We understand that it's a little bit more difficult to access sometimes the parts and people that are needed to put a heat pump into a colder climate. That's why we're offering an up to $3,000 top-up for those people who are living in northern climates. And again, I really encourage people to do their research, to reach out, talk to an energy advisor, and understand that heat pumps will help to improve your costs over the lifetime, especially if you're switching from an oil pump, which we know lots of folks, or oil furnace system, which we know lots of folks living up north are doing. That's exactly what this program is designed for. And knowing that people can get up to $24,000 to help them make that switch, it's a game changer for those families.
Maybe just one thing. Again, I agree with Minister Osborne, and certainly we've seen heat pump technology actually evolve significantly over the past decade, even over the past 5 years. But we always are looking to advance and evolve technologies that are going to be needed as part of the energy transition, and Natural Resources Canada actually does have a program that invests in the continued evolution of heat pumps, just as we do in a number of other technology areas.
Next question, Mary Brooks, Island Social Trends.
For Minister Guilbeault. This is yet another probably good program to help people out with their environmental. But I'm wondering your bigger view picture of what is the balance between what individual Canadians are expected to do and what governments are doing. Because people in some cases feel exhausted. They've been recycling for 30 years. They've been, maybe done a few things to their house, but it seems like an endless thing. And so I just wondered what your sensitivity is on that, especially with an election coming up next year.
I think what we're trying to do federally in partnership in many cases with provinces like BC is to ensure that we have this right balance. And obviously you can never say you've achieved it, but you can strive to achieve it. The plan that Minister Wilkinson referred to, the emission reduction plan that we presented in 2022, is one of the world's most comprehensive plan, most detailed, most transparent. And it makes sure that all sectors of the Canadian society are doing their fair share, or aims to make sure that all of the sectors of the Canadian society do their fair share when it comes to fighting climate change. So most of the measures we've deployed are in fact aimed at larger emitters of greenhouse gas in Canada, whether it's regulating methane emissions in the oil and gas sector, clean fuel standards for refineries, zero emission vehicle standards for car companies to ensure that 100% of cars sold in Canada are non-emitting by 2035. But obviously we as citizens also have a role to play. But what we're trying to do there is to help people with programs like these and others to make the transition, to help contribute to Canada's goal of fighting climate change. And as Minister Wilkinson pointed out, I mean, last time our emissions were so low in Canada, O.J. Simpson was on trial, and Google.com was bought as a domain. So that's the progress we've been able to make collectively. It's not the federal government's progress that we're seeing. It's not just provinces either, and it's not just companies, and it's everyone working together to ensure that we achieve our goals.
And Minister Wilkinson, I'm just wondering if you could give us your broader view on watershed protection and drought management. I know a lot of that is in BC, but there is a cross-country concern about that. But are we doing enough as a country to protect our water supplies and to make sure it's available?
Well, I think this is becoming a more and more of a pressing issue as we're actually seeing the impacts of climate change more clearly. And you just have to go to the prairies right now, many parts of the prairies, to see the impacts of drought, which cascade into impacts on agriculture. So I think that issues around watershed management actually are going to get a lot more attention moving forward. I would again say BC's been a bit of a leader in this regard. I think Finn Donnelly has kind of led the work here with respect to watershed protection. It is an area that Canada is extremely focused on. We created the Canada Water Agency, and actually my colleague who was responsible for the Canada Water Agency may want to comment on this, but it was precisely to actually be much more focused on some of these watershed issues moving forward. In an era of climate change, the issues around water are going to become increasingly important. And you know, that's not just for BC, that's not just for Quebec and Ontario. If you think about where most of the rivers come from on the prairies, they come from the glaciers. So increasingly, we are going to have to be a lot more focused on how we are going to manage those and how we are going to adapt to some of the changes in water.
I just want to add a word from a British Columbia perspective. During the pandemic, we started what we called a Healthy Watersheds initiative to both employ people and make changes in some critical watersheds that had long been identified as needing rehabilitation. And out of that grew the watershed security strategy and the $100 million fund that we recently set aside. Minister Nathan Cullen is further developing the strategy, and processes being put in place to fund changes to watersheds that will conserve water as well as protect communities, businesses that rely on water, agriculture, and important values like fish. So it is critically important, and we know that that's why we have to integrate land use planning, watershed security, salmon restoration into one integrated bundle, and that is important work that's happening in the new Ministry of Water, Lands, and Resource Stewardship.
We will now go to the phones. Rob Shaw, Check News.
Well, hi, this is, I guess, for both the federal ministers and the BC ministers. How does what you're signing here today or announcing here today compare to the Atlantic provinces and their heat pump deal from, I think it was October of last year, and our premier wanting to get a very similar deal for British Columbia? So I'm just hoping you could compare if we have the same numbers and amounts, or how that works.
Yeah, so we have signed oil to heat pump agreements with Newfoundland and with Nova Scotia, and I expect that we may see others in the near term. And those are done on a proportionate basis. So BC is treated identically to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. What I would say, though, is the announcement today is actually broader than what we've announced with Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. This program that the British Columbia government is delivering actually is about using money from the Low Carbon Economy Fund federally, the Oil to Heat Pump program federally, in conjunction with funds from the government of British Columbia, to be able to enable people, whether they're on oil to convert to a heat pump or on natural gas to convert to a heat pump. So it's actually a broader program than what was signed with Atlantic Canada.
Follow-up, Rob?
Sure, thanks. In talking to people who use the existing program, they often talk about how complex it is. You've got to get an energy assessment. Sometimes it's hard to get an advisor and then a contractor. You have to match the units up to the government serial number lists. You've got paperwork. It can take more than a year. Even the electrical costs can be more, although I see that the amounts have gone up. So I guess for the BC ministers, what would you say about the complexity of the program And does this make it more complex? I'm looking at all the income rebates and cutoffs and different numbers of people in the families. What is being done to sort of navigate the difficulty of getting through the program?
It'll be important for people to register on the website so they can determine their household and their income eligibility, and then that will lay out exactly what's available to them. What's easier about this program is that you don't need to get an energy assessment first, that this is a program you can apply directly to. And as we heard from Jordan, you'll be able to work with a contractor who will actually take the amount off. You're just left with the bill, which is the total amount that you need to pay, if you need to pay anything, depending on your household circumstance. What's also different about this program is we've expanded it beyond the former income qualified program into middle income households. We know just how important it is to help people fill the gap in the higher capital costs of installing this equipment, and that they're going to benefit in the long run from lower costs, from energy savings, but they're going to get the summertime cooling as well as the wintertime heating. So this program is broader, there's more funding available, it'll benefit thousands of people in British Columbia.
Next question, we go to Katie DeRosa, Vancouver Sun.
Yes, Jordan had sort of hinted at, look for a reputable company to install the heat pump. So can perhaps Jordan talk about, have there been companies who've been less than reputable, who've been sort of trying to take advantage of these government rebates?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the competition is easy, like you guys were saying there. You just want to, I think you want to look at Google reviews, talk to a few different companies, maybe get a few different quotes, and reach out to the companies that you're seeing larger that have been around for a little while. It's important that install is huge on these on the heat pumps, sorry. It can make or break your experience with what you have, and I think it's just getting through to a few different, referrals from people locally, and shopping around a little bit to see, to make sure you're getting a local reputable company.
Follow up, Katie?
I mean, could the minister speak to, any problems that they've seen with, companies perhaps trying to get government rebates that are not completely qualified? And as a follow-up, Minister Osborne mentioned sort of the myth that heat pumps don't work well in colder climates. So if that myth is out there, will it be harder to get some of these northern communities that are on perhaps home heating oil to actually make the switch if they already have a perception that this isn't for them?
Well, that's why it's so important that we're spreading the good news about this program so that more people will learn about it. And as we see more and more people take up heat pumps and talk about the benefits that they're feeling, they'll be able to spread the word to their neighbors. But we know how important it is to have a solid network of contractors out there, and Jordan has just spoken about some of those factors. And it will also be taking some new steps in addition to what Jordan was describing about how people can look for contractors. But we're going to help make this a bit easier by doing things like publishing the average prices on a website, requiring that contractors split out labor and equipment, undertaking audits of quotes so we compare programs in the past and in the different income levels, just to ensure that everybody is receiving a fair service. There's an excellent network of contractors out there. We're going to continue to do everything we can to build that. We know just how important it is for people, whether you live in Fort St. John or you live in Vancouver or you live at the tip of Vancouver Island. You want to be able to access a contractor to put this really incredible equipment in your home.
Next question, Wolf Deppner, Black Press.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. A question to the federal ministers. Is this announcement today a case of the squeaky wheel getting the grease? And I asked the question in the context of the complaints from Premier David Eby and other ministers around the treatment of BC back in the fall. Thank you.
I'm not sure. This is not a case of the squeaky wheel getting the grease. We made it clear that we were interested in working with all provinces and territories to develop plans to address the oil to heat pump issue and to put in place agreements under the Low Carbon Economy Fund, which is under the purview of my colleague Minister Guilbeault. We have signed agreements, as I said, on the oil to heat pump program with Nova Scotia and with Newfoundland and Labrador, and I expect that you will be hearing other announcements over the coming weeks. And we are very interested in doing exactly the same things with other provinces that are interested in pursuing. There are some that have indicated they have less interest, like Saskatchewan. That's up to the province of Saskatchewan. But certainly BC is one of a number of provinces that have said they actually want to help their citizens to transform their energy use in a way that actually fights climate change and saves money on energy bills.
Follow-up, Wolf?
Yes, thank you. Back in October, any number of commentators made the point that Atlantic Canada received these rebates as a way to shore up Liberal support, federal Liberal support in that part of the country. How much is today's announcement about shoring up votes in British Columbia, especially in the urban parts of the province where heat pumps might be more likely to be used? Thank you.
Well, my colleague, Minister Guilbeault, may want to add to this, but what I would say is the issue of oil to heat pumps was actually not a political decision. It was a decision to actually try to help folks who were paying 3 to 4 times the cost of natural gas. In virtually every province and territory, or certainly in the provinces and territories where the federal backstop applies with respect to pricing, 8 out of 10 families get more money back, but that wasn't true for people who actually were on heating oil because it is 3 to 4 times as expensive as natural gas. So the decision that was taken was one to actually help people make this transition. But it was a program that is open to all provinces and territories. It's up to provincial governments to take advantage of that. And so I'm very pleased, yes, that the province of BC is taking advantage of it because I'm very pleased that people are going to save money on their energy bills, and I'm very pleased that people are going to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. That's the kind of work that any responsible government should do, and that's exactly what we are doing.
Maybe I'll add just a few elements. I totally agree with what Minister Wilkinson just said. In terms of people using home heating oil, there are more Quebecers still using home heating oil than all of Atlantic Canada put together. So the exemption we created specifically for home heating oil was not for any specific part of the country, but really, as Minister Wilkinson mentioned it, really to address an affordability issue with people who could not or had a very difficult time making the transition away from home heating oil to more efficient and cheaper to operate heat pumps.
Just want to address this from a provincial perspective. I said earlier that when you have a really big job in front of you, you need to start it, not put off starting it. And I think we've had many instances where we have formed productive partnerships between the provincial and federal governments to advance our common goals on conservation, on emission reduction. And this is another example of we want to do the same thing, and we've reached an agreement to do that in British Columbia that assists British Columbians with affordability as well as with comfort and heating costs.
Next question, Stefan Leib, Glacier Media.
Hi there, thanks for taking my question. I believe this is for Minister Osborne. What qualifies as the upper limit of a middle-income household in this program? And can you clarify what kind of homes will be eligible? For example, is it just single-family homes? Are we talking multi-unit mid-rises?
Thank you. So we are talking about single-family homes, and we are talking about income levels and household size. So what people will need to do once the program is launched in mid-June is go on to the website to register and determine their qualifications for and eligibility depending on their household size and income level. All of the details are laid out in the background, or so I'll